Hi, hello, welcome to Pages in the Stars. My name is Ash. If you're new here, hello. If you're returning, welcome back. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below so you can be alerted to all my bookish, not bookish, and sometimes ranty content. Today we are continuing our journey of the breakdown and review of the manga Zatch Bell. We are on Volume 14. We are right in the middle of the ancient Momoto Arc, which is kind of the first major arc of the series. Really fun part of the story. I have a lot of fun doing this series, and I'm glad that a lot of people seem to be enjoying it as well. So if you're new here, welcome to the intergalactic fam. Come on and have a seat. Let's talk Volume 14. At the end of Volume 13, we were introduced to Kafk Sunbeam, the owner of Ponygon's book. Ponygon, up until this point where we met Sunbeam, went the entire series without his book owner, but he's finally met Sunbeam, who has proven to be a very worthy book owner to Ponygon. Ponygon and Sunbeam work together to help aid Zatch, Kiddo, Layla, and Albert take down the ancient Momoto Dalmos, and they were successful in doing so, but post this battle, Ponygon and Sunbeam are absolutely wiped out. They have zero strength. They are completely done. While they're resting up, Sunbeam explains that what helped them in battle was that he was listening not just to the words Ponygon was saying, but the feeling, the emotion that was coming through in Ponygon's voice. And that's how Sunbeam was able to so effectively communicate in that battle with Ponygon. Because we know Ponygon speaks through his Meru Meru Mise, but no one outside of Ponygon really understands what he's saying. So Sunbeam's explanation is that, well, I listened to what he was saying, but I listened more to how he was saying it. The feeling, the emotion that was in Ponygon's voice, that's what made me able to communicate with him and made us so effective in this battle. This leads to Ponygon trying to say his real name. We learned, I think it was in Volume 5 or 6, that Ponygon's real name is not Ponygon. That is the name that Kiddo gave him. This isn't the first time Ponygon has tried to tell people that his real name is Schneider, but unfortunately, because no one can really decipher the Meru Meru Mise, we still call him Ponygon. No one knows that his real name is Schneider at this point. And unfortunately, as much as Sunbeam, and as well as Sunbeam, understands Ponygon and was able to communicate with him in battle, the same is true for him. Ponygon goes as far to use his body to spell out the Japanese characters that would be the equivalent of Schneider, and Sunbeam still doesn't get it. So Ponygon is still Ponygon to everyone else. They don't know that his real name is Schneider. Layla comes in and gives Kiddo this fragment of a stone. It looks kind of like a tiny crystal. And when Kiddo holds the stone to his chest, his energy is replenished and his wounds are healed. Layla also reveals that this is the stone that freed them from their tablets. This leads Kiddo to make this connection between the stone that the crystal that Layla has given them, and the stone that Alm was talking about a couple of volumes ago. Layla says that she doesn't know much about this crystal other than it's a much smaller piece of a much larger rock crystal. The ancient Momoto were told that if this large rock crystal stops glowing, then all the ancient Momoto will return back to their stone tablets. Layla basically then shoos Kiddo, Zatch, Ponygon, and Sunbeam out of there because none of them are in a position to fight right now, even with the rejuvenation from this little rock crystal. But Layla also adds in that a group of Momoto went on this little reconnaissance mission to go scope out the town, which just happens to be where Kanchime, Fulgore, Tia, and Megumi are hiding. With his recovered strength, Sunbeam armors up Ponygon and climbs on top of him along with Zatch and Kiddo. Yeah, Ponygon is that strong that he is capable of not holding not one, but 3 people, allowing them to ride on him and charging at full speed from this ancient castle into the city where the others are hiding. I think I said it last video, but I'm going to say it again. This is great to see for Ponygon because he spent so long not being able to fight because he didn't have his book owner, kind of tricking the rest of us into thinking that he was a pet pony dog. And then we learned about that internal conflict in him, that he really wanted to protect his friends, but he really didn't want to fight in this battle. Now we see that he's made that choice and he's driven to do whatever he can to protect his friends. So he charges full speed to the town with Sunbeam, Zatch, and Kiddo on his back. Apollo is back. Remember Rops's book owner? Well, he's returned. And one might question, well, why is Apollo back if his Momoto got sent back to the Momoto world a couple of volumes ago? Even though we didn't get a lot of time with Rops and Apollo, there is absolutely no question that Apollo cared deeply for his little ladybug-like Momoto. And yes, Rops is gone, but the Momoto world is still in danger from being taken over by Milordo Z. So at this point, Apollo's mindset is, I'm going to do whatever I can to help the friends and the allies that we made in this battle to protect the Momoto world for Rops. Apollo might not have Rops by his side anymore, but Apollo's still going to do whatever he can to protect the Momoto world, even if that means using his influence as the head of a financial conglomerate to secure lodging for the friends and allies that they already made so they have a safe place to stay while participating in this battle. So we see Apollo helping Tia and Megumi and Kanchime and Fulgore. They're all at this hotel trying to rest and recuperate from participating in the ancient Momoto battles that we saw them in volume 13. But of course, because this is Zatch Bell and there's no rest to be had, we learn what Layla said is true. Kermit the Frog, Bianco and several other Momoto did go on a reconnaissance mission into the town to see if there were any potential enemy Momoto hiding. One of those Momoto shoots a blast at the roof, which Tia is sitting on, and a couple of things. First of all, if you're supposed to be hiding in this town, trying to avoid enemies, why are you sitting on the roof? And on the railing at that. Sitting on the railing is dangerous enough, but you are supposed to be hiding. Why are you sitting out in broad daylight on the roof? They made a whole deal in the anime where they showed them arriving in South America, and Apollo was driving them in a car. Zatch asked, why are these windows so dark, Apollo? I can't see anything. And Apollo answered Zatch and said, yeah, you're not really supposed to be able to see out of them, but the point of them is to keep you safe so other people can't see in. But Tia is all out here just sitting on the roof in broad daylight. No one does anything here. Why is Tia sitting on the roof? It's bothering me. Anyway, Apollo leads them down and out the back stairs of the hotel, hoping that they'll be able to escape, and tells everyone to go to his car. But of course, the enemy Momoto then blasts Apollo's car. Tia tries to make a quick getaway because remember, Tia has Zatch's book. Kiddo and Zatch gave Tia the book last volume and told her to protect it. So Tia's main goal not only right now is to escape for herself, but also to protect Zatch's book. So Tia really tries to make a quick getaway in the hopes that she will be able to protect Zatch's book with all her might. An enemy Momoto tries to grab for her, but Wanrei and Lien are back. Remember volume 8 when we were first introduced to this pair, Wanrei and Lien? Well, they were back. Of course, recruited none other than by Dr. Riddles and Kiddo to aid them in this battle against the ancient Momoto. Wanrei and Lien come in with a spell that quite literally sends the Momoto trying to attack Tia away, and explain that they are here, they know Zatch and Kyo, they helped them a long time ago, and they're going to do whatever they can to aid in this fight against the ancient Momotos. Bianco sends 2 more Momoto after them, but Wanrei and Lien are not the only ones who are back. Kiddo and Dr. Riddles are back as well, and when I tell you I was so excited when I was a kid to see that Kiddo and Dr. Riddles were back, that we hadn't seen the last of them, and that they were going to be active participants in the battle against the ancient Momoto, I was thrilled. If you watch my video about volume 11, you know that Kiddo, hands down, is my favorite Momoto. His entire being just really resonates with me, and again, I think that's because when I was a kid, I looked at him and I was like, this looks like a Momoto who spends a lot of time reading books, and here's me running an entire YouTube channel about books. So I was absolutely thrilled to see that Kiddo and Dr. Riddles came back, and that they really did make good on their promise to gather as many allies as they could to fight in the battle against these ancient Momoto and Milordo Z. Kanchime and Kiddo say hello to each other, or it's not really hello, it's them having this moment where they talk about, I'm stronger than you, no, I'm stronger than you, and it kind of reminds me of 2 kids on a playground hanging on the monkey bars trying to see who can hold on the longest. One of those moments again where it's like, yeah, these are kids. You get reminded quite often in this series that although they are fighting what is essentially this violent battle royale, the kids in this battle are just that. They are kids. Kiddo and Wanrei are able to protect Tia and Kanchime from the Momoto on the ground, but that doesn't stop this flying dragon-like Momoto from swooping down and grabbing Tia. Tia starts internally berating herself about letting her guard down and not doing everything that she could have to protect Zatch's book, and just as she's about to throw Zatch's book to Megumi, Zatch rides in on Ponygon literally in the nick of time. He grabs Tia's hand, accidentally steps onto her face while trying to run onto the Momoto that's holding her hostage. Tia gives Kyo the book, he launches as a Karga, they grab Tia and manage to land safely. And then everyone goes home. No, I'm kidding. I wish it were that easy, but unfortunately, it's not. Bianco tries to attack with what's left of the Momoto that Milordo Z gave him. One of them is this stone-type Momoto that shoots lasers, and this other is a Momoto who has this power that revolves completely around flowers and roses. It's actually really cool, and I wish we kind of got to see more of this Momoto because her ability to control and manipulate plants is just really interesting, and I think that's kind of one of the cooler powers that we get to see from these ancient Momoto. So as much as Bianco tries to control the situation and attack with these ancient Momoto, it's not enough. The ancient Momoto can't really hold their own. Wanrei and Kiddo do a great job of fighting against them, and Kyo powers Zatch up with Rauzaruk, which is a spell that I've compared to the Super Soldier Serum that was used on Steve Rogers. It makes Zatch incredibly fast, incredibly strong, more so than he already was. So it just amplifies the qualities that he already has in him, and the ancient Momoto that Bianco brought end up defeated. Everyone regroups at the hotel, and this is where we find out that Dr. Riddles also tried to recruit Brago and Sherry, who at this point in the series are kind of starting to get on my nerves. They didn't bother me so much when I was a kid, but I think, again, having the ability to analyze the series on a little bit of a deeper level, these two are starting to get on my nerves. Brago's reasoning for not wanting to team up with everyone else is that everyone else is just so weak, and they're so weak that he's going to have to use his strength to compensate for their weakness, you know, typical Brago stuff. But for Sherry, it's a little bit different. Sherry, on the other hand, doesn't want to team up with them because of her personal vendetta against Zophis. And her personal vendetta against Zophis is completely understandable. But she even goes as far to say as, I would have rather dealt with his ancient Momoto myself. So while her desire to deal with Zophis and the ancient Momoto by herself with Brago is completely understandable, I think her personal vendetta at this point is clouding her judgment a little bit. Because the faster you take down the ancient Momoto, arguably doing that with more people, the faster you're going to get to Zophis, and the faster you're going to get Coco back. I don't think Sherry was capable of realizing this at this point, because this personal vendetta, her fury, her fire to fight Zophis, was just so strong that it prevented her from even thinking about that. Brago mentioned something in volume 17, which it's a couple volumes away, so I'm not going to discuss it right now, but he said something that kind of backs this up, so we're going to revisit this conversation when we get to volume 17. Sherry does pass along a little information to kind of thank Dr. Riddles and Kiddo for providing the information on the ancient Momoto army that they did, and she tells them that Milordo Z is a fake name, that the real name of the Momoto who's controlling and manipulating the hearts of people is Zophis. Kyo jumps in and says that sounds like Brago and Sherry. They are not exactly team players, and everyone is astounded to find out that Kyo and Zatch fought against Brago and Sherry and managed to survive and are still in the battle. We even see Wanrei say that there isn't a Momoto who doesn't know Brago's name, and among Momoto, he's the strongest. Dr. Riddles points out that it would have been best if they had agreed to fight with them, but at this point he realizes that there's no changing their minds. So they have to forge ahead with the Momoto and the human partners that they have. Use the teamwork with the teams that are already there. And at this point we go back to the trash can, Zophis and Coco, who are preparing the Momoto for an anticipated attack tomorrow. Zophis advises them not to go back out into the town or not to go back out into the city and try and fight the Momoto again because they don't have enough information, and it's going to be better if they try and fight them on their home turf, on their own terms. As much of an overflowing rotten dumpster as Zophis is, he's a smart overflowing rotten dumpster, and he knows exactly what he's doing. Besides, Zophis at this point is much more concerned about the possibility of having a traitor among his ranks. Really hate you, Zophis. And then we go back to the hotel, and Kyo and Dr. Riddles are on the roof! Why are you guys on the roof? Did you forget what just happened to Tia? I know Zophis said that he wasn't going to send any more Momoto out into the town to try and fight them, but we know this. They don't know this. Stop hanging out on the roof, please. Anyway, Kyo looks at the fragment of the Stone of Moonlight, which has lost its glow, and tells Dr. Riddles that he's worried about the Momoto, Layla, who gave it to him, who risked her life in doing so and trying to help them fight against Zophis. Dr. Riddles tells Kyo that they should all try to get a good night's rest so they'll be ready for the battle tomorrow. And then we get this page, which literally just shows everyone resting for the battle for tomorrow. But I have a few questions. Kiddo, 1, why are you still wearing shoes in bed? And 2, why is your foot in Consummate's mouth? The next page art shows the crew already at the ruins, which is a little bit different than the anime. I do want to kind of go to the anime and talk about what happened there a little bit, because we do get this really nice monologue from Apollo as our protagonists are walking towards the ruins and getting ready to go into this battle. He says that his friends are off to protect the future of the Momoto world, where he hopes Rops is happy. Apollo has this line which I think really ends up summing up how as an adult I feel going through this reread. He says, "Their backs are so small, we're asking them to carry all our fates on them." So when I was a kid, and I've said this a couple of times in these videos, but when I was a kid, I didn't mind so much that these were, kids fighting in this battle, because it was just cool to me. I wanted to be a Momoto. I wanted my own spellbook. I wanted my own magical power. I wanted to fight to be king of the Momoto world. I thought that was really cool. Now as an adult and one that works with kids, what's being asked of them and the sacrifice that they're being asked to make to protect their home world hits on a much different level than it did when I was a kid. So I just wanted to talk about that for a second, but let's jump back to the manga. As our heroes work through the ruins, they come across plenty of ancient Momoto, but their attacks are so coordinated and they work so well together that the ancient Momoto that they encounter really aren't much of a match for them. And then we hit the staircase of doom with the sea of vast nothingness below. I'm not sure what's worse, the staircase of doom with the sea of vast nothingness from below that we see in the manga, or the staircase of doom with the fiery lava pit below it that we see in the anime. I'm not sure what's worse. Tell me in the comments, what would you rather face? The staircase of doom with the pit of nothingness below, or the staircase of doom with the fiery lava pit below it? I want to hear from you. They decide to make the trek up the stairs, Kyo thinking to himself how well things have gone up until this point, almost too good to be true. Consummate asks Kyo if this is the only path that they can take, or if there's any other route that they can go, and Kyo explains to him that castles were deliberately built like this so only certain people, not everyone, would be able to have access to the king. And then the molded pile of rotting fruit flesh finally shows his true face. Our heroes finally come face to face with Zophis for the first time. Zophis tells them that he was watching their every move to see exactly how many of them there were and what their fighting style was like, and it's here that Kyo realizes that's why they'd stopped running into so many enemy Momoto, because Zophis was using them as reconnaissance. Zophis wanted to see how they were fighting and what they were going to be like. So they ultimately walked into a giant trap. And then Zophis starts destroying the stairs. But it's fine. It's fine because they planned for this. I mean, it's not fine. This is not a good situation to be in, but our protagonists planned for this. So they had a contingency plan. They had a backup plan, which is great. Dr. Riddles tells everyone to go with Plan E. Fulgore uses Consummate's ability to transform to turn Consummate into a hang glider. Hang glider Consummate grabs onto Fulgore's hand and then also grabs onto the hand of Dr. Riddles, who's holding on to Kiddo for dear life. Wanrei grabs a hold of Lien, Tia, and Megumi, and then using one of his spells launches himself from rock to rock to rock until he gets to an exit way along one of the walls. And Ponygon goes into armor mode so Sunbeam, Kyo, and Zatch can ride him up the stairs into a corridor for safety. So here's the deal. While Zophis had his own plans, Dr. Riddles also prepared our protagonists for this. Dr. Riddles told them that the best possible way to fight this battle was going to be to stay together and to work together in one single group. And we saw this a couple of pages ago when they were fighting the ancient Momoto, that their fighting was so cohesive and they worked so well together that they were able to work through a lot of the ancient Momoto enemies that they came across in the castle. However, Dr. Riddles also acknowledged the fact that the best case scenario might not be possible and might not happen. So he told them, if we get into a situation where we end up having to split up, grab onto the hand of the person next to you and fight alongside them. This way we either double or triple our chances of survival instead of fighting alone. One of the things that I've really enjoyed as we've entered into the ancient Momoto arc is that A, we've seen a lot more teamwork come into play, but B, we've seen a lot more strategy in these fights with the ancient Momoto, because in most cases our protagonists are not able to take them down one-on-one. They need that teamwork. They need to work together in order to fight against these much stronger Momoto. Each of our teams make it from the crumbling staircase to an exit into a hallway. So these are the teams that we currently have. We have Zatch and Kyo with Ponygon and Sunbeam. I have to say I really like this duo. I think Kyo's intellect combined with Sunbeam's level-headedness really is going to help them in battle. Then we have Tia and Megumi with Wanrei and Lien. And while Tia might not have a lot of attack spells, she has her defensive spells and she also has her healing spell Saifojio. I think that combined with Wanrei's strong offensive spells and martial arts training from Lien puts them in a decent place. I think the team of Tia and Megumi and Wanrei and Lien has a lot of potential behind it. We get to Kiddo, Dr. Riddles, Conchime, and Fulgore, and I'm going to try to be as objective as I can here. This, in my opinion, is the weakest of the three teams. Neither Conchime nor my boy Kiddo have any defensive spells whatsoever. At least with Zatch and Kyo and Ponygon and Sunbeam, Zatch has Rush Shield, but in this case, neither Kiddo nor Conchime have any defensive spells whatsoever. That puts them at an extreme disadvantage right away. And I brought this up last video, or was it last video or a couple videos ago? I know I've brought this up already. While Conchime has an incredibly versatile spell set, Fulgore does not have the innovation to know how to properly use Conchime spells and know when to use them or what to have Conchime transform into. Fulgore does not have the innovation to do that. He doesn't know how to do it, which is why a lot of times we see Fulgore being directed to do something with Conchime because he doesn't come up with these things himself. He just does it. So Fulgore's complete lack of innovation, combined with his honestly complete lack of maturity, leaves a lot of slack for Dr. Riddles to pick up. That's as objective as you're getting from me, and I promise you most of this objectivity is going to disappear next video. So Zatch, Kyo, Ponygon, and Sunbeam end up in this room with a bunch of floating stars that can shoot lasers, but the problem is they can't see the Momoto and they also cannot see the human partner. Sunbeam, being the responsible adult that he is, reminds the other three that this is no time to panic and they need to stay clear-headed in order to figure out a plan of action. I love that even though we were only introduced to Sunbeam last volume, he's already established himself as the responsible dad of the group. It's probably one of my favorite things about his character. Dr. Riddles, Kiddo, Conchime, and Fulgore end up in this room with this giant Momoto who's just sitting in his chair. Well, he's sitting in his chair and he's spinning and screaming. Conchime, Fulgore, and Kiddo are freaking out at just this sheer size and sight of this Momoto, while Dr. Riddles is trying to keep them calm so they can devise a plan. So while Dr. Riddles is trying to calm Kiddo down and, figure out a plan, Fulgore decides that his idea, his brilliant plan, is to just waltz right up to this Chairman Momoto and ask him if they can pass through. Chairman, who we learn his name is Belgamio, of course says no, but then reveals that while he was trapped in his stone tablet, he was absolutely bored out of his mind for 1,000 years. So let's say if they managed to entertain him with a song or a dance or something, then he might be generous enough to let them pass through. Of course, this seems easy because they have Fulgore, the invincible Fulgore, pop star, actor. He'll be able to pull something together to entertain this Momoto. While Fulgore prepares to entertain Belgamio, we get some thoughts from Dr. Riddles that Fulgore absolutely needs to do his best because this Momoto he gets the sense that this Momoto isn't all talk and is absolutely as strong as he seems. Then we get to Wanrei, Lien, and Tia and Megumi, who are battling against Saolon and Genso. Tia, Megumi, Wanrei, and Lien have the exact opposite approach to this that Fulgore did. They stand back and try to assess to see what this Momoto is going to be able to do. They don't want to rush in and attack without any thought whatsoever. Saolon, the Momoto, kind of praises them, gives notes that you guys aren't foolish enough to jump in and try to attack first without seeing what we can actually do. But then he gets bored, so he decides to attack. All of Saolon's spells revolve around the staff that he has. The first spell that he uses makes his stick stronger, but Wanrei, being Wanrei, jumps in front of Tia, Megumi, and Lien to try to protect them and dodge as many of Saolon's attacks as he can. Lien makes her way to Saolon's book owner Genso, and immediately she noticed something is off. Lien notices that Genso is capable of dodging her attacks in a way that she's never seen the manipulated humans do before, but she also notices that Genso is using an advanced Chinese kung fu technique. Genso reveals that he is not being manipulated by Zophis. When Zophis told him about the battle for King and what he was doing with the ancient Momoto, Genso wanted to fight because he's got this obsession with fighting against really strong opponents. He's tried tried fighting against humans before, and the humans are just too weak. So Genso wants to try his hand at fighting against Momoto. So because he was so interested in the battle, Zophis didn't need to manipulate his heart to force him into fighting. Genso reveals that in order to read Sao Lan's book, all Zophis had to do was alter his body a little bit so it would fit the wavelength, so it would match the wavelength of the book. They battle back and forth for a little bit, but as strong as Wanrei's offensive spells are and as good as Tia's defensive spells are, they are able to smash through Tia's strongest defensive spell, Masa Shield. And then Wanrei tells Tia, Megumi, and Lien to stay behind him, that he will take all the damage from Sao Lan in order to protect them. Tia and Megumi try to argue with Wanrei, but Lien urges them to listen. And Megumi absolutely doesn't understand this. She doesn't understand how Lien is just going to kind of stand idly by and watch Wanrei get attacked when this is the person that she knows that Lien loves the most. Megumi reminds them, after everything that you've been through, being separated and then promising to fight together and fight by each other's side, how are you just going to stand by and watch Wanrei get beat up? And then we get something that is so purely Shakespearean, I love it. Lien tells Tia and Megumi that yes, Wanrei is indeed the person that she cares about and the person that she loves the most. But even though she loves Wanrei and Wanrei loves her, they are destined to be apart. I think the storyline bothered me a little bit when I was a kid because I kind of said, ew, romance, but as an adult, I appreciate it so much more. So despite Lien and Wanrei's warnings, Tia and Megumi do try to help. They use Gigalasayoshi, one of Tia's shields that goes around the opponent, and when the opponent launches their attack, it sends it right back at them. So Tia and Megumi think that they'll be able to use that, but Sao Lan and Genso's spells are just so strong, it completely breaks the Gigalasayoshi and sends them flying back. Tia and Megumi are completely wiped out, absolutely laying on the floor, unable to move. Lien kneels down and asks them that even if she and Wanrei are separated during this battle, what do they think will remain of them? Before we get the answer, the next few pages are split between the battle and some absolutely wholesome flashback moments of Wanrei and Lien. We see Lien introducing Wanrei to her grandfather, Lien's grandfather making Wanrei promise to make Lien happy for the rest of her life, Wanrei and Lien dealing and facing the reality that even if they are able to win the battle for Momoto King, they're still going to be separated in the end. They're going to be separated from each other. That's inevitable. Wanrei tells Lien that he'll remain in her heart. That even if they're separated, that him living within her heart is going to be the only way for them to stay together. We go back to the fight and we see Wanrei fighting, his clothes tattered, and he's also internally monologuing, talking about his desire to become a protecting king and that he hasn't become king yet, but he's still going to do his best to protect everyone here so that Lien will have something good to remember him by. We hear him say that someday they'll be separated, but their hearts will always remain together. Shakespeare himself could not write this. Lien reads Wanrei's most powerful spell, Rao Di Baren, and even as strong as it is and as much strength as they put into it, it still fails against Sao Lan and Genso's spell. And Wanrei somehow is still standing literally like a wall in front of Lien, Tia, and Megumi, holding good on his promise to protect them. We hear, or rather read, what Lien told Tia and Megumi, that even if Wanrei does go back to the Momoto world and they are separated, Wanrei will remain in her heart forever. Sao Lan and Genso heal up with the Stone of Moonlight, and at the same moment, Lien tries to read one of Wanrei's spells, but they are completely out of strength from within. Wanrei and Lien literally have nothing left in them. Is that going to stop Wanrei from trying to protect Lien and the others? Absolutely not. But Megumi is so moved by Wanrei and Lien's display of love and their absolute dedication to each other that she tries to muster up some strength into the book for Tia to launch a Saifogio. Now, Megumi isn't doing too well right now. She's still on the floor, but Tia gets up, stands up, and tells Megumi to put all of her strong emotion into the spell and gathers up enough strength for a Saifogio. Megumi and Tia launch a Saifogio, and the Saifogio, remember, which is Tia's healing spell, hits Wanrei and Lien and heals all of their wounds, giving them the strength for another spell. I absolutely love this moment, not just because of the love between Wanrei and Lien, but of how positively moved Megumi is by their display of love, and Tia's absolute determination to get up to use her spell to try to help Wanrei and Lien. The Saifojo is successful, but here's the thing. This isn't just Rao di Baren. This is amped up Rao di Baren, because not only does it have Wanrei and Lien's strength in it, it also has the strength and the feeling of Tia and Megumi in it. So this absolutely massive spell this time is able to take down Saolon and Genso. I love this. I love this here because, again, we see the emphasis of you're stronger when you're with others than when you're alone. Wanrei's Rao di Baren by itself wasn't enough for this, but amped up by the strength that was given to him and Lien from Tia and Megumi, they were absolutely able to demolish their adversary, and I love that. Saolon can't hold his spell and is defeated. I think one thing I love about this is that when Genso tries to come at Wanrei, he looks at Wanrei and sees not necessarily that Wanrei is physically bigger necessarily, but his presence has grown exponentially. And I think I love that. I love this. Wanrei knocks Genso unconscious and tells him that he's sorry for leaving him there like that, but there's people that he has to protect. That's the end of volume 14. I have to say, I really enjoyed rereading this volume. Wanrei and Lien are two characters who, as a kid, I definitely did not appreciate, but I've really grown to appreciate them a lot more, particularly their dedication to each other and Wanrei's dedication to protect the people who are around him, the people who he's deemed important to him, and his desire to protect them. So I've really grown to enjoy Wanrei and Lien's character. Tia in this battle, let's talk about Tia for a moment. In volume 4, when we first met her, there are no friends in this battle. Every Momoto that we come across is an enemy. Massive trust issues, did not want to work with everyone. But here we see a complete 180. Not only has she worked through those feelings to join up with the others to fight with them, but her bond, her friendship with some of these Momoto is so strong that she's going the extra mile to really put forth her best effort to try to protect her friends. So she's gone from saying there's no friends in this battle, everyone is an enemy, to giving it her all to protect them, to protect the friends that she's made. So I love the development that we've seen from Tia. It has absolutely been a thrill to watch her grow into this character. Based on the caliber of the battle that Wanrei, Lien, Tia, and Megumi have to fight, we should probably expect something of the same caliber or even higher for the next couple of battles that we are going to see against the Supreme Momoto. Which brings us to volume 15. We're not doing this now. That's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Give a like, give a subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I will see everyone in the next video. Bye!